from director Luca Guadagnino, probably mispronounced that, sorry Luca, comes After the Hunt. If you recognize the name, it's the man who brought you Challengers and Call Me By Your Name and the Suspiria remake, which, not a fan of remakes, giant fan of the original Suspiria and Dario Argento. That Suspiria remake by itself, for the most part, not a bad film. This is After the Hunt. This stars Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield and Michael Stuhlbarg and Chloe Sevigny and Ayo Edebiri. Very sorry. She's very good. I've seen her in a lot of things. It's just this first time I've tried to pronounce her last name. This is a story of chicanery in higher education, which is very much simplifying what this is about and not to minimize the actual subject matter. So Julia Roberts and Andrew Garfield are longtime friends. The film intimates, maybe more than that, who are professors at Yale, I believe, and they are trying to, they're racing toward tenure. They're professors of philosophy and high-minded things like that. They have a star pupil who is portrayed by Edebiri, and she is she's working on her thesis. And the film opens, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. The film opens at this elegant, hoity-toity, floofy, snoofy, snooty party in the palatial apartment of Julia Roberts and her husband. And they are talking about high-minded things. That really sets up the plot and the dynamic where Julia Roberts and her husband live the high life, but slightly, formally a little cold to each other. Julia Roberts and Garfield are very chummy and very cozy with each other. And I'm going to try to not keep saying her last name and ruining it. Edebiri is like their star pupil who is a little unsure of herself, but trying to make it in the world as lawyer, philosopher. I don't actually remember what she was studying to be, but some things come into question. They all hit the sauce pretty hard that night, and we see Edebiri and Garfield leave, and he's going to walk her home or he's going to walk her out, and then later Edebiri comes back to Julia Roberts and reveals that he assaulted her that night. So the film becomes this dynamic of Julia Roberts. Does she believe her student who says she was assaulted by a longtime good friend of hers? Does she believe the friend of hers when he says, yes, we were drunk, and yes, I maybe went too far with some things, but I didn't do anything? And how does that impact all of their lives and careers and futures? Now, add to this the fact that Julia Roberts has some kind of a problem. I'm not going to get into what it is, but maybe she drinks a little bit too much. She keeps having some guttural pains. She and her husband don't seem to be as connected as he wishes they were. And it is a story of many people and their pursuit of what they think their life has led up to, their life's work has led up to, where they think they deserve to be in life, where they desperately want to be in life, and how their choices and personal foibles or weaknesses maybe thwart that. It's a very high-minded film. This was in theaters very briefly. This is an Amazon MGM film, and Amazon also produced, Amazon MGM, I guess, with the same director, produced Challengers, put that in theaters. And I'm not saying they can't make a good movie, but since maybe the mid-90s, let's say, whenever I saw the MGM logo, I always went, ooh. Because at some point, MGM used to be one of the great studios, but at some point, anything with the MGM tag on it, I always knew was not quite going to get there for me. And it's sort of like when you see Screen Gems. Screen Gems was the TV offshoot of Columbia Pictures back in the 60s through the 80s or whatever. And eventually they brought that back in the late 90s or into the 2000s as Screen Gems was like when Sony didn't want to put out a horror movie or film they didn't really want their name on because it was a little lower grade or it was a little less intellectual. Not that what they put out under the Sony label is intellectual, but a lot of times you'd see the Screen Gems and you'd be like, it's a horror movie, or they don't really want to call this a Sony or a Columbia picture. That's kind of how I feel about MGM. Amazon owns MGM, so it's a prestige thing to put at the front of your movie. But it always, when I see that, I feel like this movie is probably not going to quite go the distance. And that's how I ultimately felt about After the Hunt. Very intelligently written. Everybody's really good in this. It's well shot and cut. I mean, the director makes good films, makes well-made films at least. But ultimately, it left me kind of cold. Like, I didn't really. I hate to be one of those people who say you can't enjoy a movie if you don't like anybody in it, but I didn't really like anybody in this movie. Everybody is very cold and very distant and very, very much focused on themselves. I would say maybe except for Julia Roberts' husband, but even then, that's hard to say. It is nice to see a modern film with A-list actors that, to put it bluntly, isn't stupid. There are many of those made every year, but so often everything is just so fluffy and so dumb and so aiming for the simplest person in the room. And this movie isn't that. So I really appreciated that. This is one of those movies that makes you wonder who's telling the truth. Where, to quote, another film title, Where the Truth Lies. What really happened in this film? Who really is a good person in this film? Because sooner or later, nobody really comes out looking great in this movie. And it does dig into social politics of the day, and it skewers a lot of different ones. And there are moments where Julia Roberts will give a verbal smackdown to her students for being like entitled or coddled or, being, I think they say something about performatively wounded or something in the film. And I was just like, interesting to hear somebody say that out loud. Probably the kind of thing a lot of teachers wish they could say to their students. So it was well-made film. It just really didn't 100% connect with me. And that might possibly be because once you get past a certain level of high-mindedness or academia or intellectualism, my small-town dude switch goes off. And I'm just like, could you just use real words? Having said all that, I did appreciate this film was intelligent. It did hold my interest all the way through. And it does have like what I felt was one scene too many. It kind of ends and then it feels like it kind of ends again. And that last scene, it's a scene in a diner with Julia Roberts and another character. It felt extraneous to me. It felt like it felt way too rushed. It did not seem natural at all. It felt like a reshoot or an add-on that to try to put a little bit more of a button on the film or to try to give people a happy ending or something like that. And it just didn't seem necessary. So let me know what you think if you've seen After the Hunt or if you watch After the Hunt. But it is now available on Amazon Prime. So if you are somebody who has the Amazon Prime subscription, it is a movie that will play for you without you having to pay for it again. Amazon Prime, Amazon MGM Studios, Julia Roberts, Edebiri, Andrew Garfield, After the Hunt.